terms of the budget. And unfortunately, when that happens, then a lot of people don't get the benefits they're eligible for, what they're entitled to, what they paid for in all those years. So this is what I'm doing in my semi-retirement. I was gone a few days. I'm back now. And so this is going to be a long one today. I'm going to talk about how you can make sure you don't get overpaid or underpaid. You're just like, overpaid. Oh, I always like overpayment. They eventually catch it. So let's go through the list. Okay, so Elon Musk and everybody, they took their chainsaw to Social Security and cut thousands of employees. People are still leaving. One of my closest associates when I worked at Social Security, he just retired a few days ago, and Social Security lost one of the best people they had when he decided to retire early because he was tired of the chaos. He loved the agency. A lot of these Social Security employees love the agency. And they were kicked out, or they just said, yeah, it's not going the way it's supposed to go. And as you saw in my thumbnail for this video, we're talking about Trump cuts to Social Security. But I also put all those other presidents on there as well, because this isn't something new that just started happening with Doge and the current administration. This has been going on for a long time. This was a plan by those that don't want Social Security to be around anymore. They want to give those trillions of dollars to Wall Street, their Wall Street buddies, so they can, get their golden parachutes and all the rest of it. So this has been a plan that's been, hatched back in the 1980s to slowly deteriorate the agency. And now it's coming to fruition. Now it's on steroids. You call Social Security, maybe you're on the phone for about 3 hours, and then if they pick up, it's usually one of those AIs that's picking up. And I've called a few times just to check, and it's giving out incorrect information, the wrong information. It gets you in this terrible loop, and you can't talk to anybody. If you file online, people say, well, I filed online and everything was good, and I got my paycheck and everything like that. Well, even when you file online, there's someone on the other side that's supposed to check to make sure your benefit is correct. And unfortunately, because Social Security, their staffing is so low, it was at a 50-year low before Doge and Elon Musk came in. And now I guess it's probably, the final statistics aren't out yet, but it's probably as low as it's been in terms of how many people need to be helped since, 1935. Okay. So here's what we're going to talk about today, the $72 billion in mistakes. So the OIG, the Office of Inspector General, did a report, did an analysis, and they said between 2015 and 2022, Social Security made $72 billion in incorrect payments. And politicians love this stat. They love this statistic. They talk about this is the one, the reasons Elon Musk, we're going to fight this fraud, waste, and abuse. And see, look at Social Security even admits $72 billion. But if you look at it, we're going to look at it. And guess what? It's not what the politicians are using something for their own purposes and using it out of context and use it incorrectly. Go figure. Yeah. Oh my gosh. The world is over, right? All right. So 72 billion. So we're talking about for those 8 years, about $9 billion a year. That's a lot of money. But Social Security this year, 2024, Social Security sent out $1.2 trillion in checks. So you figure over those 8 years, about $1 trillion every year goes out of Social Security. Where does it go? It goes to your Social Security retirement, goes to your disability benefits, your survivor benefits, spouse benefits, and all the rest of it. That is less than 1%. Less than 1%. So the current commissioner says, oh yeah, we're going to save Social Security. We're going to make sure your checks are not cut by 23% in 87 months, which they are going to be, according to the Social Security Trustees report. That's not going to happen because we are on the ball. We are doing administration, and we're finding the fraud, waste, and abuse, and we're going to save it. And yeah, the only place they're looking is that less than 1%. And let's talk about that less 1%, because yeah, we want to get it down to 0% as close as possible. Absolutely. That's one of the things Social Security employees do to make sure that people are not incorrectly paid. But the problem is now there's no Social Security employees, so that, it's very, very difficult. Okay, so let's make sure you are getting your right benefit, your loved ones, and everybody else. The number one thing I tell anybody once they decide they're going to file, or any time in all times in their life, every year, every couple of years, is check your CQUE. What's that? That's your summary query of earnings. Basically what it is, it's your work history. You go into ssa.gov, you set up an account, my Social Security account, and you check to make sure Social Security has the correct numbers. That's how they determine how much your benefit is going to be on a monthly basis based on how much you actually paid into Social Security. And they look over the high 35 years of earnings, not the last 2 or 5, or they look over the high 35 years of earnings. And then they index those based on a wage index, and they multiply them times bin points, 90, 32, 15%, but we won't get into the details there. But the most important thing is to make sure your benefit is correct by checking to make sure what you paid into Social Security is correct. You can fix that. I've done several videos on fixing those records if you find something mistaken. Sometimes those earnings are just in what's called a suspense file in there, but please check. The biggest thing that we found, I found after doing this about 1 million times, is gap years, where you worked in like 1982, 3, 4, 5, 6, but one of those years showed 0. That's the most common mistake. And what it is, somewhere along the lines, your tax account, and the IRS, Social Security, transposed your Social Security number and they typed it in wrong. And those earnings are out there in suspense. They're kind of floating around out there. So you just have to raise your hand and identify them. They confirm that's yours, and then they put it on there, recalculate your benefits. The problem with not having enough staff is that's one of the things that Social Security employees look out for. If you file online, you think, oh, I just filed online, so I didn't have to deal with a Social Security employee. No, incorrect. Social Security employee has to look at every one of those internet claims and look at it and see if there's any spouses, I'll get to here in a second, any spouses that need to be paid, any children that need to be paid, whether there are any gap years that need to be addressed to see if there are mistakes. But when you don't have Social Security employees on the other side checking all those things, and AI ain't there yet, then you're going to have a lot of people that are underpaid and not getting the benefits they're eligible for, entitled to. So, okay, so there's where some underpayments and overpayments happen. The biggest one, over 50% of incorrect payments, predominantly overpayments, go to people that are receiving retirement benefits and disability benefits and working. You are allowed to work while you're receiving RIB or DIB. My regular viewers know all the acronyms here. RIB is Retirement Insurance Benefits. DIB is Disability Insurance Benefits. So Social Security Retirement Disability Benefits. You are allowed to work and collect Social Security benefits, but there's a lot of limitations. If you're under full retirement age, limited to $23,400 a year. There's a monthly test. When you first start your retirement benefits, you can just do the monthly test, which is $1,950 in the following year. So it's all complicated. Disability is 10 times more complicated, and people get that, don't know how to figure that out correctly, and they often make mistakes. I've got another, I'm going to be showing Marjorie Taylor Greene came out and said, hey, maybe, I want to be a unique person and support healthcare. It's like, yeah, welcome to the 90% of Americans. But anyway, I'll get into that in a little bit here. But that is over 50% of underpayments and over incorrect payments from Social Security is people working and not reporting that work to Social Security timely. That's the issue. And then at the very bottom here, of my list, this is probably the big thing right there right now with delays. That's going to get even worse. Even if you report your wages to Social Security, who do you report it to? You have to report it to a human being so they can ask you some questions and see what year and does this work actually count? Is it earned income and is it unearned income? Is it an ISM, in-kind support and maintenance? They have to ask you a bunch of questions, determine how to post those particular earnings. And if there's no Social Security employees on the other side, a lot of people get messed up. And then when you get messed up in this particular area, then you get an overpayment or an underpayment. Usually it's overpayment. So you get paid too much, and then you get a nasty grant from Social Security next year or the year after that says you owe us $5,000, $10,000. If you're on disability, sometimes those say you owe us $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. Because even on disability, you are allowed to work. Everybody wants you to go back to work if you're able to go back to work. And so Congress devised a bunch of laws, which I think they're good. They're super, super complicated, but if you look at each particular part, they kind of make sense. But they are complicated and people just don't understand it. I've got a bunch of videos on that. I've got my website that explains that in English. And the problem is people mess up and then they work while collecting disability benefits. Again, you can work and collect Social Security disability benefits, but you have to do it right. If you don't do it right, if Social Security doesn't post it correctly, whatever the case may be, there's delays, then you could get overpaid and then have a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 overpayment. Or sometimes what a lot of people have seen, well, not a lot, but some people see, is Social Security finally gets those records. And then they go back and they say, wait a second, you haven't been disabled from day one. You've been working all this time, yada, yada, yada. So we're just going to cancel your disability from day one, which started 3, 4, 5 years ago. So you have to pay all that money back. So it's important that you report all those earnings because Social Security eventually does find out. So the key there, what I mentioned is, again, these are $72 billion of so-called Social Security mistakes. But in these particular case, the work, it's not necessarily Social Security, it's the people doing that work that has to report it. So if you're receiving disability benefits, you have to report it and make sure, again, there's no employees out there, unfortunately, make sure you record. Hey, if you need help with Medicare, Medicare Advantage, Medicare supplements, Part D plans, make sure you reach out to my partners at Chapter of Medicare. I looked for a place that would help you all out. And Chapter Medicare knocked it out of the park. They've got excellent customer service. They look at every single plan in your area, and their help is always 100% free. Give them a call, and they'll see if they can help you out. And tell them Dr. Ed said hi. That you actually posted that those were posted to your record and confirm, this month you call and say, hey, I'm going to be working on making this much. Here's my pay stubs and everything. Next month, call and say, hey, just want to double check. Did I get the trial work period? Am I still on my extended period of eligibility? Check all those little details so you don't get overpaid or underpaid. That's over 50% of the people that get incorrect payments. Okay. Auxiliary, it's called. Another way a lot of people don't get paid correctly is they don't get their spouses, their divorced spouses, benefits from their ex-spouses, their children, child and care benefits. There's a lot of auxiliary type of claims that you can file. So if you have a child under the age of 18 or became disabled before the age of 22, they're entitled to benefits on your record once you start those benefits. If you have a spouse entitled to those benefits, if your current spouse, your benefit amount is twice that person's, entitled to those benefits. If I'm going to go over this one really, really quickly because I've done a lot of videos on spouse benefits and divorce spouse benefits and independently entitled divorce spouse benefits. So I'm not going to go into all the details there, but if you have any special questions, specific questions, make sure you ask them in chat or better yet, record a video. You go onto my website, mygovexpert.com, and in the lower left, it has a little camera icon. Click that, and you can record a 2-minute question. I've got quite a few of those set up for today. Okay, start date. A lot of people make a mistake in when they start their benefits. There's thousands of videos out there that tell people, if you don't file at 62, you're dumb. If you don't start your benefits at 67, you're dumb. And those people are all dumb for saying any of that because they don't know you. It might be good for their particular situation to start at 62 or 67 or 70 or whatever the case may be, but each situation is different when you start your benefit amount. So a lot of people, because again, if you call Social Security, they can kind of give you some, they can't tell you when you should start necessarily because that's kind of financial advice. So they're kind of cagey in that response. Congress said, we used to do break-even point analysis for people that says, yeah, you should go ahead and file now because if you don't, then it'll take you 14 years to make up the difference. Congress said you can't do that anymore because that's kind of financial assistance. We're going to let the American people, we think the American people are smart and they can make their own decision. So when they go in there, if they say they want to start their benefits on this month, then just go ahead and start it. So unfortunately, you lost a lot of advice there. So that's one of the reasons I do this channel here is to kind of help you navigate that. So if you're working, and I've again done a bunch of videos on this, and I do a live Q&A, and each situation is different. If you're working, under your full retirement age, then there's the work limitations, the monthly. If you have spouses, auxiliaries that you're looking for, that should definitely go into your calculation, whether you're young, a youngish 62 and healthy. If you've got a family, if you've got a good gene pool in terms of, they live forever, then that might be better to delay for tax things. And then a lot of people are making their decisions on when they want to file. It's like, hey, if I wait until 70 years old and I get an extra 24% added to my check, it's not going to make a difference, because Social Security, the trustees say checks are going to be cut by at least 23% anyway. So what's the difference? And so I'm going to just go ahead and get while this getting's good, because it doesn't look like politicians, not only the current administration has zero plan to protect your Social Security and prevent the cuts. And nobody's enacted any plan in 40 years to protect our Social Security. So it doesn't look like, I'm always trying to be optimistic, but it doesn't look like any politicians are going to step up right now and do anything about it, unfortunately. So a lot of people are adding that to kind of their decision matrix to determine when they should start benefits. Okay. Another big overpayment is undisclosed assets. And this only matters for SSI, Supplemental Security Income, which is a welfare-based program that Social Security administers. People think SSI is Social Security. It is, but it isn't. SSI is Supplemental Security Income, a welfare-based, a needs-based program. You have to have low income, low resources. And a lot of people, some people on SSI don't report their wages that they receive on time, and they get overpayments. They don't report assets. When you get SSI, just like Medicaid, food stamps, your first primary home is excluded and your primary car is excluded. So, but if you have any other type of assets, you get another car donated from a friend or, uncle or something like that, you get some money coming in. If you don't report it to Social Security, then you're going to have an overpayment. So there's a lot of overpayments that happen on that. And there was some video out there in social media talking about Social Security is going to be accessing everybody's bank accounts and looking at how much money you have in your bank account and all that kind of stuff. That's all BS. It's only for people receiving SSI, Supplemental Security Income, the welfare-based program. The most you can get on SSI is $967. You have to be disabled or aged, 65 or older. And when you sign up for that program, just like Medicaid or food stamps or anything like that, you give the government authority to check to make sure you don't hit the $1 billion lottery or get an inheritance of $1 million from a long-lost uncle. So you give Social Security authority to monitor your bank account to make sure that doesn't happen, so you don't get overpaid. So as soon as that money hits your bank account, then Social Security system essentially shuts down your check and say, hey, you just got $1 billion. What's going on there? It was a typo, whatever the case may be. So yeah, it's not, contrary to some social media people out there, Social Security is not looking at your bank account if you're on retirement benefits or regular disability benefits or survivor benefits. It's only SSI, Supplemental Security Income. Okay, so if you're receiving SSI and getting any extra assets like that, you're allowed $2,000 if you're single, $3,000 if you're married. You have to report it to Social Security. Another thing is miscalculations, and this one is really going to increase, unfortunately. There are some calculations that have to be done manually by a Social Security employee, Windex, PIAs, Family Max, Combined Family Max. There's some the system just doesn't do, and it has to be a manual calculation. Unfortunately, the people that used to oversee those more difficult calculations, they've been kicked out of the agency by Elon Musk and Doge and the current administration, because they said, hey, if you're close to your retirement, it might be a good idea to go ahead and bail, or and as we used to say in the Marine Corps, they were voluntold. You were told to volunteer to get the heck out. So thousands of people, particularly those senior people that have a lot of experience, those were moved out of the agency by the current administration. And it looks like they're trying to do that again with this government shutdown. So we'll see what happens. But a lot of people are just in Social Security. They're saying they've had enough. And if they're even close to retirement, they're just go ahead and bailing, unfortunately. And the miscalculations are going to increase because if you just have a whole bunch of, newer people, you don't have the real great institutional knowledge that those people that work 30, 40, 50 years at Social Security that know their stuff, those people are no longer in those particular offices. So miscalculations, unfortunately, I think are going to increase. Fraud, waste, and abuse is going to increase because most fraud, waste, and abuse, Elon Musk and Doge did not find one penny of fraud, waste, and abuse at Social Security. They made a bunch of crazy allegations, but when it all came down to it, yeah, zero. Big fat goose egg. Who finds fraud, waste, and abuse? Social Security. Well, you do. You report it, and then Social Security employees investigate that. And if it looks like it's something that needs to be investigated even further, they sic the attack dogs, the Office of the Inspector General. Hey, Mike, that was our local special agent. We used to send him out knocking on doors and stuff like that for people, fraud, waste, and abuse. But if you don't have employees at Social Security, then there's going to be more fraud, waste, and abuse, unfortunately, because people are going to take advantage of the fact that there's no employees monitoring the systems there. And as I mentioned, delays. People are going to get delayed getting their benefits, delayed getting their Medicare because of the low staffing, and people are going to get underpaid. Their benefits are not going to start when they want them to start because Social Security employees, there's just no employees there to help out. And remember, my regular viewers know this. You're saying, my office is open. I drove it by the other day and it was open. So don't know what Ed's talking about. Social Security offices are broken up into three different units, three basic units: CSRs, Title II, and Title 16. CSRs are the generalists, change of address, sign up for Medicare, after the fact type thing, SEPs. Title II is what I was. Title II of the Social Security Act did retirement benefits, survivor benefits, Social Security disability insurance, sign up for Medicare, during your initial enrollment period and all those type of things. Title 16 does the SSI, the welfare-based program. So your office might be open, but it might just be full of, generalists, and all the Title II that, you're filing for retirement, all those people, they're gone. They've been, voluntold, to get out of the agency. And so the only people in your office are people that do the welfare program and the generalists who can't help you. So even if your office is open, it might not be open for you, and it might get even worse going forward.